guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about A Court of Thorn and Roses, and I will just put it right out there, I couldn't even finish this book. Unpopular opinion maybe, but I was bored out of my mind, and I had to stop this book and start reading Lord of the Rings just to cleanse my palate. Like, no. This book is not good. I was so uninterested in these characters and what was happening, and I tried so hard to finish it, and I couldn't. So I'll tell you exactly where I stopped, where it was just too much for me, but I'm gonna give a quick summary of the book in case you're interested. I would say this for me is a 1 star. I don't think the author is a bad writer. There were things that she put in that definitely took me out of the story, which I'll get into, but she's not a bad writer. The story is just not interesting. So this book is a mashup of the fairy tale Beauty and the Beast and Tam Lin. And the main character, Feyre, she is out in the woods. She kills a wolf that ends up being a fairy, and then another fairy comes and takes her back with him as kind of a life debt for this fairy that was murdered. And she ends up at the fairy court, and that's kind of setting off the whole Beauty and the Beast aspect of this book. So that's kind of the summary. It's basically what's on the back cover, but I'm going to mainly talk spoilers here. So if you don't want to hear all the things I didn't like about this book, you can stop here. So Feyre, like I said, goes out into the woods and kills a wolf. And she's trying to feed her family, who are poor and destitute. It's her father and sisters, her mother's dead. So she is duty bound to take care of them. She promised her mother on her deathbed, and this is the driving force behind Feyre's character. Feyre does everything out of this sense of duty and obligation to this promise, and that's what keeps her going. This is not out of love and devotion. Everyone treats her pretty poorly, and the whole backstory of Feyre's family was one of the more boring aspects of this book. Feyre could have killed the wolf and immediately been taken by Tam Lin. That would have made the whole setup so much better and quicker to get to the actual interesting parts of the story. But instead we have to go back with Feyre, see how poorly she's treated and how she just takes it. And this is supposed to be the strong female character, but she's not. She lets her family basically use her and then excuses their behavior by this promise that she made to her mother. So, I don't know, Feyre's just not very likable. She's not an interesting character. We know that she is an artist, she wants to paint, but that's it. Feyre doesn't have anything to her. She's not somebody you can really get behind because she's just not interesting. She doesn't seem to want anything. She says, oh, I'm gonna have my sisters get married and I'm gonna live alone with my dad and I'm gonna paint. Okay, I mean, she doesn't even like hunting, which is all she does. And if they would have made it to where she was this cool hunter, warrior, but this is not her passion. She does it out of necessity. So she's not even a strong character in that way of like a warrior who wants to fight and is, you know, fighting for her family. She's just boring. She's so boring. And then we get to Tam Lin. So this is going to be the Beast character, and he shows up as a beast when he comes to retrieve her to have her make good on that life debt that she owes. And then after that, he is not a beast anymore for the majority of the book. He is a fairy, a handsome, beautiful, gorgeous fairy. And this makes the whole Beauty and the Beast aspect of the book pretty much non-existent, and as far as the relationship. So the idea with most Beauty and the Beast retellings is that the woman has to get past the looks of the Beast character. She has to see him for who he is, for his personality. She has to see past the Beast to see like his inner self. And she is drawn to that, to his character, to that person that she sees that she can love. Well, Feyre doesn't have to do that. She can see Tam Lin as hot. She can see that he's good looking, and that's all that she seems to care about when they eventually get together. Like, they had no chemistry. I did not even bother reading their sensual, whatever you want to call it, scene. It was so, like, they had no chemistry. She hates him up until a point, and then she doesn't anymore. And there's not a natural progression of them getting to know each other. He buys her paints. I'm like, okay, well, good for you. And then shortly thereafter, they're sleeping together. And it was so ridiculous to me. I didn't care about their relationship. And so when he sends her back, because of course he can, there's no treaty, she doesn't owe him a life debt, it was all set up. When he sends her back, it didn't bother me. I didn't care. I was like, okay, more uninteresting backstory with this family that should not have been. So that's the whole romantic, the Beauty and the Beast characters. And they're just not interesting and not explored. What do we know about Tamlin other than that he's really good looking and, he's supposedly bothered by something, the curse, but there's just not any depth to that character. There's nothing that you know about his personality or who he really is, or a depth that makes you see, makes you understand why Feyre is interested in him. I mean, is it just because he's hot? Okay, whatever. The other thing is that because we're in Feyre's head, Feyre constantly puts in what she believes the fairies think about her. If they say something that might be totally just a throwaway, something they just say to her, she immediately fills into her head that they think that she is a typical ignorant human, her shortcomings. So she's constantly berating herself on their behalf. They're not even going after her. She's just got a typical ignorant human. That's all they think of me. Oh my gosh, stop. Stop, Feyre. You're the one doing this, and you're supposed to be the main character that we care about, that we like. You're awful. It was awful being in your head. I never want to go back there. It was terrible. Okay. So then, of course, the whole situation with she gets sent back to protect her, and Tamlin gets taken by the evil fairy queen. And so there's this other character that I think is going to be more of a main love interest, which is so messed up. Rysand, I think is how you say his name. I didn't even bother looking it up. And he is the consort or side piece. I don't know what it's called. He's the lover of the fairy queen. And I got to the part where he basically tortures Feyre in the dungeon. She's been given a task she has to complete to try and get Tamlin back from the evil fairy queen. I'm not going to get into it all. It's so boring. But Rysand basically tortures her to get her to agree to spend a week with him every so often, which is gross. It's gross. I don't care if Rysand changes. Rysand also gave, a fake name to the fairy queen of a woman that, was supposedly Feyre. And that woman was brutally tortured and killed. Rysand is not a hero. He's not a good guy. Stop. I don't care what they do later to redeem his character. I don't care about him. I could see where if you're really into that weird aspect of a relationship that starts off with kind of an evil guy who's torturous, like, okay, if that's what you're into, but I refuse. Now, I will say that I recently read Cinder as well, and the main character is what I loved. The main character saved this book for me. I love Cinder. I thought she was great. And the rest of the little things that I had problems with in the book didn't matter because she was so great. So I felt like if A Court of Thorn and Roses would have had a really strong, really interesting characters, I would have liked it. It's not for me. I just couldn't get behind it. And I read, like I said, up until the torture scene, and I just said, nope, I stop here. I can't, it's not for me at all. It was grotesque. But the other aspect that really bothered me of this book was that the author, this is set in kind of a medieval fairy tale land. And then out of nowhere, one of the characters says, oh, you sure got balls. What? And then they started to throw in modern like cursing and language. And I was like, where is this coming from? I mean, I don't expect her to have totally courtly language. Like it's fantasy. But the language shouldn't go from like normal, medieval type, they're talking about certain things in a certain way. And then it goes to, you've got balls. I was like smacked out of that story so quick. I'm like, whoa, that took me right out of there because it just didn't make any sense. I just can't. So those are my thoughts on A Court of Thorn and Roses. If you loved it, this is totally my opinion. Take it for what it is. But I could not get into it, and I will not read anything else in this series. I mean, if all of those characters were, okay, I won't say this. If all those characters died, I wouldn't care. I'll just put it that way. I really tried to get through it, but I won't finish that book. So that's all, and thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I hope to talk to you about books that you're reading and books you enjoy, and hopefully better books will be ahead.